Hello, everyone. Welcome to On the Move, a show where we share transportation sales and marketing success stories. I am Jennifer Karpus Romaine, Executive Director at the Transportation Marketing and Sales Association, which is a trade nonprofit educating and connecting marketing and sales professionals in transportation and logistics. And today on the show, I have Kristy Knichel, CEO of Knichel Logistics. Welcome to the show, Kristy. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Thank you for having me.
I am so excited to have you on the show today. We were talking before we went live here that I am battling a bit of a headache today, but I was so excited to talk to you that we are powering through it and getting through the day. But you've been in the logistics industry for a long time and really excited to kind of hear your journey a little bit. But what has kept you motivated and inspired over the years?
So I think what's kept me going is knowing that I'm building something that makes an impact, not just in moving freight, but changing people's lives. Motivated by my team, our partners, vendors, customers, especially the women that are entering into the space who didn't always see themselves here. And of course, my family, I don't want to forget that. But I think being a part of everyone's journey that I'm either working with, whether in the company or outside, and watching their success definitely fuels me.
I love that. And I do think, you took over a family business, but you did so much to get there. So I think having that family piece is really important. And I'm curious, throughout the years, how has your leadership style evolved as the company and as the industry has changed?
I would say early on, I felt I had to do everything myself. I think honestly, early on, you just had to do everything yourself, being a smaller business and growing into a bigger business. So over time, I think I've learned the power of trust and delegation. I think there's times where people, or even myself, have still tried to hold on to that. But I think as we have grown, I've shifted from being in the weeds to empowering others to lead, make those decisions, giving them the autonomy to do that. I've definitely become more intentional, more strategic, specifically more in the past couple years. But I've also embraced coaching as a core part of my role, not just for myself, but for the people within the company.
I love that. I think that's really important to think about. And I know, like at TMSA, we have a small headquarter team and we're trying to grow it out. But you have to trust the people around you. You have to coach them to get them there, which I think is incredibly important too. And so I like that you said that. I think too often we are like, oh, we have to micromanage or things aren't going to get done. But sometimes it's like, hey, we have to train them and show them the way and then let them figure out their own way. And if we don't do that, they're not going to succeed. Of course, they can't, take that weight on if we don't let them try. So,
Yeah, and interesting enough, I will just add to this as well. Like that's one of the things we're struggling with middle management right now. And honestly, I can understand it because I was there. So I feel like I know what needs to happen to get the people out of that, holding on to the stuff that needs to be done instead of delegating and making their life easier. But I think one of those tips I'll just share, and I told my leadership team this today, we have to tell them what we need them to do and give them deadlines to do it, because I think in the past we tell them, we expect them to do it, but right now our management team underneath the leadership team is in the weeds, and they shouldn't necessarily be in the weeds, but they have to be right now at this moment. So they don't have time to think about these other things that need to be done or executed or delegating. So it's like we have to tell them that this needs to be done this way. This is what's happening on these days to just help push them through that.
I think that's really important. And deadlines are incredibly important to that piece of the process. I think that we want to make sure we're setting people up for success. And part of that is setting the parameters and how to get there. And so if we don't set deadlines, if we don't tell people, hey, this is when we need something done, and then they don't give it to us in the time frame that we think that they should give it to us, we get angry or upset, or they think they're not doing it. But really, that's kind of on us to be like, okay, no, you have X amount of time to get this done. If you're not going to, like, let's talk through why and how, and like, how can we help you achieve these goals? And I feel like as leaders, sometimes we forget those components.
Yes. Yeah, you're spot on, because I do think part of it too is like you're also trying to train them on things that we've done. So again, you expect them to just kind of pick it up because we've done it for so long. And then you forget what it was like being in that position, trying to learn and understand what the expectations are. So, absolutely.
Yes, and especially too, like you can have the best processes in place, but if there's a new human coming in and taking over for somebody else, their brains just might not work in the same way. And so it may have taken that other person quickly to pick up or adapt, or like they're the one that created the position or the role or the process. So it made sense to them, but we have to take that time to make sure it's making sense for the new people too.
Yeah, sometimes it's a different language, right, with a different
Hmm.
generation, even of people. So,
Absolutely. And we talked about this a little bit as we're going through here, but what is kind of one leadership lesson you really had to learn the hard way so that you could adapt for the future?
so we just went through this past year. So that not everyone is meant to grow with you. I think a lot of people know that I've had a lot of people work for me for a long time. So letting go of people, especially ones that you care about, can be incredibly hard. Especially since they've, some of these people again have been here a long time. So holding on too long can slow down the entire organization. I've learned that doing the right thing for the business sometimes means making tough and very emotional
Mm,
decisions.
yeah, yeah, that's a hard one to learn for sure.
Yeah, and I would say, just to elaborate, like we're at a level in the business, like a turning point at this 100 million mark, where every CEO I talk about, this is a tough mark to be at, and where different change has to come into play in strategy and execution. And as much as I love the people that have been here and helping the company get to where we're at, sometimes those same people can't get over the challenges or see, through the trees, the bigger picture. We work with those people, obviously, in getting some coaching and all that kind of stuff, but sometimes those people just aren't going to make it. And one of the things I think we've learned about that too is, in the past, most of the people we've held on to try to get them there ultimately end up not being able to stay. So then you look back at how much time, I don't want to say is wasted, but how much
Hmm.
time you really couldn't move forward because you're trying to get someone there, so that they continued to be a part of your team, but ultimately it hurts the organization.
Yes, I think that kind of goes back to like deadlines and parameters too. Like, okay,
Yes.
what is a real marker of success? Can we get somebody here what we need them to do? And one thing like I've learned in my own leadership journey is like it evolves. Like
Yeah.
your needs change with the market and with your structure. And if one person on your team leaves, it's not always a direct replacement of that person. It's like, okay, well, if that person's gone, what skill sets do we need to bring in? What really makes sense for us here? How do we fill the void or make it different or change? And I think sometimes we get stuck of like, okay, this person's gone, we have to replace them. But like taking that step back and really thinking through what the best structure is to move forward is really important.
Absolutely.
And in an industry that's known for its pace and its pressure, and like you said, you're at this like big milestone marker, a lot of change, a lot of movement, but how do you stay grounded and sane in all of the change?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one. I will say, I remind myself why I started. I know early on I had some challenges working with my father, that was like 28 years ago. But I always had this vision of what the company could be down the road if I just continued to just push through. I think that's one of the biggest things I always say, is just pushing through. Um, but I lean on my family. I have a lot of mentors that I work with, my team. I also, try to make space for reflection, whether that's just taking some quiet time before, my day starts, or taking that time like on my way home, sometimes calling someone and having those discussions, just being connected to the purpose and not just like the performance. It's easy to say, like, I'm done with this, I just want to throw the towel in. And that happens a lot of times, going in your head, but if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. And I think for me, it's coming into this when I was 19, quitting college, and being able to get to where I am today. I think has just continues to push me, because I want to also be that role model, that inspiration that other people can look up to and say, I can do this too. And I feel like if I stop, I don't want someone else to think like that's okay, because we can keep doing what we want to do. You just have to put the time, effort. You have to have the passion for it, though, too. And I do have a passion for what I do here, not just in the business, but I think just in the industry overall, and being able to work with all these great people that we meet, getting to know them. And it's just a great industry to be in. So I think a lot of times that reminds me too of why we're doing this. And just the fact that, you cannot buy anything without a truck delivering it, and being a part of like all of that movement that happens throughout the country, to me is just very special.
It is special, and it is a community that's really fun and engaging to be a part of. And I agree, it gets hard, and sometimes you want to just be like, no, I need the nap forever.
Yeah.
But it is, and I love what you said, like if I give up, if I stop going, then the people who look to me are going to do that too. And so sometimes that's all we need to keep pushing, is that
Yeah.
reminder.
Knowing people are watching you, whether that's my son, family, people around me, but specifically people in the industry, because again, I've put myself in a position to help, to be an advocate, to be an inspiration to other people. So yes, that definitely goes across my mind at times. But I think that's normal, though, in doing what we do as a CEO, to have those ups and downs. It's never going to just be easy. It's like a roller coaster, I always say. You have your good days, you have your bad days, but at the end of the day, we're building something here that I love being able to provide jobs for people, for them to make themselves successful, take care of their families too. And obviously, when there's things that don't go well, the first thing in my mind is I have all these people that work for me, say 56 people and their families, and just being cognizant of that as you're growing a business and knowing how that affects people. Or again, if you want to be done and sell the company at some point, again, it just starts pulling on you like, okay, well, what does this really mean at the end of the day? And who is it going to affect? I'm always thinking about everyone else instead of myself, I think sometimes, but it doesn't mean that I don't like what I do or enjoy, building this business, but all of those things, I guess, wrapped in one.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of pressure, and it's a really tough market right now. And so all of that pressure comes in. And I think what you said before, you just got to keep pushing through and keep working. Yeah. I think it's a good segue. We saw each other a couple of weeks ago at Broker Carrier Summit, and there is the Women in Logistics group, and that's a big thing that you're a part of. So I know that you're very passionate about advocating and helping other women join the industry. So can you tell us a little bit more about Women in Logistics?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So being a part of just Women in Logistics at the Broker Carrier Summit, I think is really important, because it's something that I think is different than some of the other things that are going on out there. Yes, there's women in trucking, and there's these forums for these women to go to kind of come together. But I think this is a conference that's a little bit different, that you're bringing in different types of people from different areas of the supply chain. And I think being able to build a community, I always say a tribe as well, of people around you that you can relate to, and then also help lift them up. One of the things that I think inspires me to do this is the fact I didn't have this when I was younger. I didn't have people I could go to. There wasn't any like Women in Logistics lunches or women gatherings or any of that till, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, some of this started up. But I think it's so important for women to not just feel safe, but have other women to look around to and have those conversations. Not saying you can't talk to men. Of course, we all do, and have that support too. But it is different when you're the only woman in the room, or there's only a few of us. So I do think it's a very important mission, not just for me, but for a lot of women out there. I know it is for you as well, to just continue to build this up. This is a great career for any woman to have in any piece of the supply chain. And there's so many different positions. And I don't want women to feel like that they can't have some kind of career in this space. And being able to have people like us that have kind of made the way, so to speak, for them to kind of continue to keep going. I know as I get older, I'm looking below me to see who's coming up, who can we continue to talk to, make sure they're, in my opinion, making an impact too. Because again, it doesn't mean you have to do all these different things I'm doing, just being a part of it, having the conversation, meeting the different women so that you can get different perspectives about what everyone else does in the industry. Again, I just think it makes everyone just feel, I don't know the right word, but maybe it's just a comfortableness in doing this. There's times I get calls from companies that are like, hey, how do I get more women into my company? Because they are very male dominated, and maybe it is just all men. And that's going to be challenging. So I think this is important to build these communities to talk about that. And then obviously include the men to help lift women up. And I think with the BCS movement that's happening, I think that's just a good testament to show, there are men there supporting women, especially at that event that we were just at. And the amount of women that were at that event, I was actually shocked to see, which, typically you wouldn't see that as many at some of these places, but it's very inspiring to me.
Yes, I love so much of what you said. One, I care about uplifting women and bringing women in the industry, but also like not just stepping foot into it, but how do we get them to rise to leadership level? Because I feel like we are seeing a lot more women, but then if you go to women leadership levels, that's where things are starting to still not starting. They continue to still be less. So I think that that's really great. And I also loved that you talk about we have to include men in the conversation. If we're all just the women in the room talking about how we want to rise and how we can be supported, but we're not talking to the other side of that conversation, if we're not being like, hey, this is how you have those conversations, this is how you help us rise, this is how you make sure you have people on your leadership team. I love that people are reaching out to you and asking those questions. Part of that is like be a little bit more inclusive in your language and like make people feel welcome. And like
no, exactly. And the thing is, men and women are so different in the way that they think and operate. I know it might sound a little crazy, but it truly is. And one of the things we've even done here is like we've had a woman leadership coach for the women, but my COO, who's a male, worked with the coach as well to better understand women and work better with women. Because again, sometimes, I don't know, people can feel intimidated, going to their boss, if it's a male, maybe to try to get to the next level. I'm not saying that's always the case that's out there, but it is out there and it does happen. So we need men in the conversation. And like you said, really trying to, how do you get to that next level? Do they want to get to that next level? And what are the barriers? Let's talk about it. So maybe someone like myself or you or us women that have been here a long time can talk to them about what they need to do to do that.
Absolutely. I think those pieces are so important. And yeah, we just communicate differently. I remember back in my days as a reporter, I've always been in the industrial spaces, but I remember talking to like a female engineer and she's like, men want fact and women tend to do a little bit more storytelling when they're like conveying a point. And she's like, so I just learned to get right to the point right away. And I was like, that's so like, it's so factual. Like that's so, and like, it's just, and I think it's changing a little bit, but just thinking about things like, okay, like I need to be prepared to have stats and things when I present to like a room full of men versus like a little bit more of a narrative when I'm presenting to women or things like that. And I think that can go both ways. I love that you have that leadership coach for your men too, because they can then, women want the story a little bit more. And so how can we engage in that way? So I think that's great. And you talked about it a little bit with that leadership coach, but fostering the next generation, bringing people up, having these leadership coaches. What else at your company are you doing to make sure that you're kind of giving that space for the next generation?
Yeah, so I will say we're more intentional about this now, but like mentoring, cross training. I've been having one-on-one conversations with our people to really understand, like, what do they want to do in their career? Do you want a career path to do something else? Those are things that we're still working on building out, but I think having the conversation to understand the people here, like, what do they want to do? Where do they need to go? So we can actually work on that. We also encourage women and the younger employees here to take on different goals or roles outside of the company. Like there's different organizations that strong girls or strong women, strong girls. I always say it backwards. Dress for Success, getting involved in like whether it's charity events or going to these networking events that are out there, get visibility, use your voice, get involved in the outer community. There's things sometimes that I can't go to or that I would go to that I'm like, hey, why don't you think about this? Webinars, training, of course. There's different educational courses that are out there through some of the memberships that we have, whether it's through TIA or the IANA, things like that. And I also think that, whether it's through like podcasting, speaking opportunities, or internal projects, again, just putting it out there. I've had other people here that are on podcasts that get asked to be on a podcast and stuff. And I encourage that. It doesn't need to just be me, the face of the company that's doing this stuff. I want them to kind of build their own brand, do their own thing. And a specific example is we have a new employee. Well, she's been here probably for 5-6 months now. She actually won our quarter or employee of the quarter, and she's just really stepping it up, going above and beyond. And then I'm seeing her post stuff on LinkedIn. And a perfect example is, she's wanting to build her network. And I reached out to her and said, hey, like, give me some time and I'll work with you on showing you some tips and tools of how you can continue to build your network. Because at the end of the day, everyone needs to have their own brand. I even tell my salespeople this. You're not selling the company, you're selling yourselves. If people want to work with you, do something with you, it's about you as a person. So I encourage a lot of that. Some people take advantage of it and some people don't. But I think we just have to be vocal about it and make sure that people know that these are the things that we want them to be able to get engaged with.
I am so happy that you said all that, because from like the sales and marketing side of things, it's so one of the biggest struggles we have is getting leadership buy-in for personal brand and having people execute on that. But it's so true. People want to work with people and they want to trust that you know what you're doing. And part of that is developing your team to be able to be thought leaders, to show up in spaces. It's not just one person, it's the company. So it made me happy, because what you just said is like literally what we work to help our member companies be able to like pitch to their bosses and stuff, because it is so important.
Yes.
And there's so much going on in the industry and the market right now, showcasing on LinkedIn, on social, that you're paying attention to these trends, that you know what's going on, that your company can help your customers, your prospects. So important. So great.
Yeah. It is. No, it's absolutely crucial. And I'll tell you why, because I've had a salesperson, and this was a long time ago, right? Trying to get into a customer and was never able to land that customer. I switched up the salesperson, and that salesperson, totally different, able to get that in that door within a couple months. And sometimes I look at it as it's about the person. If they don't like, I hate to say it, but how you look, how you talk, any of that stuff, they might not want to work with you at all. So it could be something as simple as that, but like building your brand. If they see you online, that's why someone here gets asked on podcasts, because she's building her brand online. And that's awesome, because then people want to work with her. That's how businesses grow. And for all the CEOs out there that don't see that, this is very crucial, extremely crucial, because at the end of the day, if they don't like who they're talking to right off the bat, they're not going to care about the company they're representing. That's just how it is.
Absolutely. So we talked about the building your brand, different things you could do, but for younger professionals, especially women coming into the industry, what type of advice do you have for them to build a lasting career in logistics?
I would say don't be afraid to sit at the table, even when you're the only woman there, because I've done that. I had to push myself to do that outside of my comfort zone. Be comfortable being uncomfortable. That's what pushes you to grow, no matter what role you're in. Be curious, be coachable, and be bold. Find mentors, ask questions, and speak up when something doesn't seem right to you. This industry is evolving, and we need more diverse voices shaping its future. And I think even in the past, probably 5-6 years, it's been evolving even more than I've seen in my whole career. So I think that those tips are extremely important.
Absolutely. I agree. And just curious, you've been in the industry for a long time. What kind of legacy do you hope to leave, both within your company, but in the industry at large?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I really hope that my legacy is one of impact, not just in revenue or awards, because I do talk about that quite a bit, but in how people felt, not just working here, but working with me or the team that I have been able to build here. I want to be known for opening doors for women, for doing business the right way, specifically like ethically. I'm improving that heart and hustle can build something truly great. I think that that is so important because at the end of the day, I could close up shop and be done tomorrow if I wanted to, but I'm not there yet. And I want to continue to make an impact on everybody that I possibly can.
Well, speaking as someone who has followed you and then became friends with you, I think those goals are being achieved. And it's really exciting to just watch you navigate your career and see how you really do impact and empower other people in the space, which is also why I asked you to come speak at the TMSA Elevate Conference, because one of the things I've always respected about you is that although you took over your father's company, you really did work all of the jobs. You got on the ground floor, you understood the company, you understood the business. You didn't just like roll up to the leadership day one and be like, I'm here. And so that's going to be part of what you share on stage for our storytelling session. There is still time to register if you want to join us June 8th through 10th in Austin, Texas. But what are you looking forward to about Elevate? It's been a few years since you've been at a TMSA conference.
No, it has. I think reconnecting with different people that maybe I haven't connected with before, because I do think there's a different level of people there. Like, yes, there's people I'm going to know, but there's going to be a lot of people I don't know. And being able to have that conversation again, how can I help you get something across, whether it's to your CEO? I think the last time someone asked me, how do we get our CEO to spend more money on marketing? Because that's challenging, right? Especially when you're going through the time that we're going through in the market. Usually marketing is the first cut in businesses because they feel that they can do without it. And, we've made some changes there as well, but I do know how important marketing is. You do need to have it. I just did hire another marketing person that starts next week. So, just a young girl, but it is so important because sometimes I don't believe that you could completely do marketing and bring in business without some salespeople, but you definitely need marketing no matter what. Marketing can truly drive people to your business, understand who your brand is, all of those things. So I'm just excited about being there, sharing my journey so people also see that like you can do what I've done. I know I have an opportunity that was maybe different than most people, but it doesn't mean you can't make something for yourself and get there as well. And then again, like I said, just meeting people that I haven't met before and trying to get them to speak up, right, and engage with them and see what I can do to help.
Absolutely. And are there any key lessons from your early roles in the industry that guide you still today?
I would say, every role has taught me something. I've learned how to talk to customers with respect, how to solve problems under pressure, how every person in the company plays a vital role, no matter what role they're in. Sometimes I would say the finance department feels like it's the redheaded stepchild, but it's an extremely important role in the company, and operations affects that, and, vice versa. So I never ask someone, though, to do something I wouldn't do myself or haven't done myself. So I think today I still carry that mentality, and I make sure the people here do know that I've done these roles. Some people didn't know that, I take the new person out to lunch and have kind of that first talk with them about expectations and stuff. But I think sitting down and telling them that stuff, there's just a different respect there.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, I do think, you just learn. Wouldn't say it's a one key lesson. It's just, I've been able to learn a lot of different things from every role, and knowing that every role is different, but it has an impact no matter what the role is.
Wonderful. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the show and coming to the TMSA Elevate Conference. I do have my last question for you that I ask everyone who comes on the show. And that's, if you could go back in time and advise a younger Kristy anything, personally or professionally, when would you go back to and what would you tell her?
I would probably say my early 20s. When I first stepped into leadership, I'd tell myself to trust my gut more and speak up a lot sooner.
Mm-hmm.
Don't wait for permission to lead, because I want to say in 2013, I finally did not wait for permission to lead and just did make a decision that needed to happen. So I think the stronger than you think, and the world needs what you bring to the table. Like, you just need to know what you can bring to the table, because I think back then I didn't feel I had a voice. I was too afraid to kind of step out of that shell. Once I started to, yeah, there was a lot of drama there with my dad, but eventually I did what was needed. And I'd never looked back, to be quite honest.
I think that's really great advice, trusting ourselves a little bit more.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to see you in Austin in just a few weeks. If you're interested in catching us on the show next week, I'll be chatting with Jillian Montrello, a video request. She will also be speaking at Elevate and talking all about how sales and marketing people can really utilize videos. Really excited for that chat. Excited to head to Austin in a few weeks. And thank you so much for coming on the show. It was great to talk to you.
Yeah, great to see you, and I'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.